Hi, I'm James Garbutt. I'm here with Denny Dumas, and today we're talking about assignments for real estate in British Columbia. And in the greater Vancouver market, that is typically referring to condos that are new construction that are being assigned or flipped from people selling them before they're complete. So just let me explain what an assignment is. An assignment is a purchaser of a new construction condo has decided to sell it before it completes. So say you buy a new construction condo, it completes in 4 years, and around year 2, your condo's gone up, in Vancouver's case, it could be $100,000 or $200,000, and then you decide to sell it for a profit. And it's called an assignment because you are assigning the rights of that property to the new purchaser. There's the assignee is the buyer, the assignor is the seller. We don't typically refer to them as sellers because technically they don't own anything yet. They are just assigning the rights of a contract. Denny is our in-house expert of assignments because we've done a few of these and they have been very complicated, and he has worked his way through it. He has talked to the professionals. So Denny, take it from here.
The first thing to note is that there are a ton of gray areas in assignments. There are a ton of gray areas in what costs, how GST is applicable on different sides of the assignment. And so I just want to make a note that each situation when you're signing a contract is different. Based on who you are, what you do for a living could change whether you are paying GST or not. So I want to make a note that if you are planning on assigning a contract, talk to your realtor, absolutely, but you will want to get advice from your accountant and lawyer. And just so you know, the reason that I say there are lots of gray areas is I've talked to dozens and dozens of people on this. I've talked to real estate lawyers. I've talked to notaries. I've talked to accountants, partners in accounting firms. I've talked to a dozen realtors who specialize in new construction, and no one has the same answer. So
you've been involved with a partner of an accounting firm that assigned a property too.
And he was asking me questions about GST when I would be asking him questions about GST. So there are lots of gray areas. If you are thinking about assigning a contract, get advice from your lawyer and accountant as well as your realtor.
And I'm going to add one more thing.
Yes.
If you're an expert on assignment tax and you watch this video, reach out to us. We want to know what's in your head because there are very few people like you that currently exist. Anyway, go ahead.
First thing to note is not all contracts are assignable. Some developers specifically write into their contracts that this contract cannot be assigned. Others need to give you written approval to assign the contract. So first of all, you're going to have to go through your original purchase contract with the developer, see if you're allowed to assign. And in most cases, you're going to have to get written approval. So you have to contact the developer and get that written approval before you can actually sign a list contract and market the property. Some developers make it very difficult to market assignments, and I had one last year that wouldn't allow us to put the property on MLS, wouldn't allow us to market through social media, wouldn't allow us to put the property on our website. So that leaves the question, what are we allowed to do? And basically the only thing we were allowed to do was email realtors. So that can make it more challenging. That's something you're going to want to know going into assigning a contract is how can I market this? Second thing, the assignment contracts look different than a typical resale purchase contract. There are a few different options of how you're going to get paid. So they call them ABC. Option A is the assignment amount, and I'll define the assignment amount. Assignment amount is the amounts that the assignor, the seller, has put into deposits on this contract, plus the lift. The lift is the difference between what the property is being marketed for as an assignment and what they paid on the original contract. So for example, let's say someone paid $100,000 in deposits. Their contract was for a $500,000 condo. It's now worth $700,000. So that's a $200,000 lift plus $100,000 of deposits. So your assignment amount is going to be $300,000. I know a lot of this sounds very confusing, but it is the world of assignments, unfortunately. So there's three options. A, assignment amount is held in trust until completion. B, the assignment amount is paid directly to the assignor, the seller, on the subject removal. And C is going to be some variation of the two. So it could be that the deposits are paid back to the seller, but the lift is held in trust. That's something you're going to have to negotiate in the assignment contract. The third thing to note is that the subject removal period can be quite long, and that the majority of the reason for that is that you need the developer approval. The developer has to sign the assignment contract prior to it being a firm contract. The developer often has very little incentive to move quickly on this, and I've had this take over a month for a developer to sign a contract and get it back to me. So just be prepared that a subject removal period can be quite long when you're signing a contract. Now to look at a few different items, whether you're the buyer, the assignee, or the seller, the assignor. From the assignee side, property transfer tax is applicable on the full amount. So what you're paying the assignor, the total purchase price, you're paying property transfer tax on. But you're only paying GST on the original contract purchase price. Another thing, as an assignee, you're going to want to see the original contract that the assignor signed with the developer to note if there are any upcoming deposits. So often with a developer, you're paying deposits over a 12-month period. Let's say 5% when they write the contract, 5% in 6 months, 10% in 12 months, for example. So you're going to want to see the original purchase price to note if there are any deposits in the future or the assignor has paid them all. From the assignor side, and this is written directly in the contract. This is something that lawyers, accountants, realtors all have given different opinions on, is whether GST is applicable on the lift for the assignor. There is a specific clause regarding GST in an assignment contract, and the wording of it is, the assignment amount is inclusive of any GST payable with respect to the assignment agreement, and the assignor shall remit any GST payable. So to me, that means GST is applicable on the lift and it's paid for by the assignor. But as I've learned from conversations with lawyers, is that this extra GST on the lift may or may not be applicable dependent on your situation. And the example I was given from one of the top real estate lawyers in BC is that, let's say it's a first-time purchaser who is a school teacher and they're planning to live in the condo when it's built, but they get a job out of town, and before the condo is built, they have to sell the contract to move out of town to take this job. In that situation, GST may not be applicable. If you are in the business of flipping condos, or if you've done this multiple occasions, then GST is likely going to be applicable on that lift. So it may or may not depend on your situation. The other thing to note is that capital gains will apply on the lift. So if you are the assignor, and like the example I used earlier, you bought this condo for $500,000, you're assigning it for $700,000, you're going to pay that $200,000. You're going to pay capital gains on that $200,000 lift. The last thing to note from the assignor side is, remember that if you're assigning a contract, that assigning this contract does not relieve you from the obligations of the original contract. And most people don't understand that, although it is written in the original purchase contract. Even after assigning, you're still going to be receiving communication from the developer. If there's any amendments to the disclosure statement, you're going to be receiving those emails, and the developer is going to ask you to sign that you've received these amendments. And that is because your obligation to this contract does not get relieved until the assignee has closed on the property. So if for any reason the assignee cannot close, or if they move out of the country and the developer cannot find them, that contract is going to come back to you, and the obligation to close on that contract is going to be your responsibility. I know that was a little confusing, James. There's a lot of information. Anything I missed?
Yeah, well, no, you didn't miss anything, but let me just try to sum up a few highlight points. Okay, so the assignment phenomenon is very popular when the market is hot and people have typically, well, in Vancouver, have bought condos that have gone up significantly in value before they were finished. So this is when this whole assignment game became big. It's very risky to buy a condo with the intent to flip it before it's complete. We don't advise that. We make sure, if you're buying a condo, a new construction, be pretty confident that you're going to have the ability to complete on it, because to flip it prior to completion, one, you're going to be running into an assignment fee from the developer.
Right.
Two, you're going to need the permission of the developer. And three, you're going to have limited ways that you can market that property. And developers are less likely to give permission and ease on these items if they have more units in the development still to sell.
Right.
So from a seller perspective, you're considering assigning your condo, likely because it's made money and made profit. So your goal in the negotiation is to get your assignment amount back, which Denny mentioned is your deposit funds plus the gain in value of the property. That is your goal in the negotiation. This stuff is very complicated and it's a headache for even us to deal with. Make sure whoever is helping you through that has done it before or knows what they're doing, because it is complicated stuff. Secondly, you can't be guaranteed that you're going to be allowed to flip it. And then Denny mentioned briefly liability. So keep in mind, even if you do successfully flip it, you do successfully negotiate your lift and your deposit funds out, you're still liable until that completes. Mm-hmm. So you still need to forward on the property statement amendments. You still may be on the hook if that assignee defaults on the purchase. So it's a complicated topic. Any experts that are watching this video, reach out to us for sure. We'd love to hear from you. But if you are considering it, don't hesitate to call us, contact us. We'll share whatever knowledge we have. And one big disclosure on this whole video is that don't act on any of the information we're providing here. We are not accountants. We are not lawyers. We are just sharing what we know and what we've discovered through our experiences. But don't act on this. Don't sue us. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.